people here already. People saying hello everyone. We're in the third dimension here.
Yeah, just Inception.
Inception, yeah. Yeah, this misses some background music.
Agree.
So thank you, Friends of Figma, for having us today to talk about such a nice topic and a topic that we are all passionate about. Today we would like to share a little bit of our process and ways of working, and actually also about our design system, the one that we maintain, support, and evolve. So in the next few slides, we'll see a little bit about an introduction to the product design system, how do we collaborate with other teams, and essentially also a sneak peek around the future and what we are planning to do in that regards. Basically, I'm João Guerra. I'm the team lead of the design system team here in the engineering department in OutSystems. Conceição, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course, yeah. I was looking at the other screen just to see our faces. First of all, thank you for the invite. We are really glad to be here, sharing some insights and our passion for design systems in Figma. I've been working at OutSystems from the beginning with the design system, more or less, give it or take it, 2 years. Really passionate about design systems and everything that it comprises. And yeah, let's talk a bit our ways of working.
All right. So,
shall we start?
Yeah.
Go on.
So just an introduction about where we work. So OutSystems, for the ones that don't know, is a software company that aims to give the power to every company, to every organization, the power to innovate through software. So we are in the line of democratizing the app development, and we work for several industries all across the world. And or specifically now on the engineering department, we are in a UX group with more than 70 people from different disciplines: UX writing, UX research, product design, UX UI, and even design ops. And if you want to find out more, we have a cool article written by our head of experience, Gonçalo Veiga, where he will describe a little bit what were the path of these years and also some lessons learned during the process. So it's nice. It's very nice to check. So a little bit about the design system and how it started. So I think we the majority of us started in this very first stage where we had a few applications where they will not belong to each other. They don't relate to each other, and we had a little Frankensteins in our organizations, and that was the reality in some years ago, where we didn't have, or we had just a little bit of effort to have someone to look to the whole and to make sense of all of these properties that we developed in OutSystems. This was before, and this is before and after of our main tool called Service Studio that is now available for macOS and Windows. So in Service Studio, you can develop any kind of app, from a web to a mobile app, for very serious applications and missions. And basically, this was the very first beginning of our design system. So we tried, and we first started into looking into the future, into doing concepts and preference tests to understand how our users would evaluate and appreciate this kind of new visual interaction. And this was the before and after, and this is the new reality now. One of the most requested features along the way was in our community was the dark theme. Well, we all know that the dark theme is on the trend right now, and it's not by chance, because we actually test this with dozens of people, and what we found out is that the dark theme was better rated than the light theme in some of the cases. So people were rating actually the dark theme in a more modern and beautiful way, and actually more powerful. That was the perception of people when they saw the light and the dark theme in a preference test that we did in the very recent past. And this is actually the result that we will see in the next slide. So here we have the Service Studio with dark theme. We had a bunch of things to cover here. The color palette was actually a challenge, and all the semantic colors that we have here. And yeah, this is the final result. Now for the product design system, as I said, so that was the revamp of the Service Studio, was the very beginning of our product design system. The product design system has the mission to accelerate and support all the experienced teams that we have in the engineering department, from developers to designers, or even to talk with PMs about what the future looks like. What we are seeing right now is basically some of the tools that are developed in the engineering department at OutSystems that are served by our product design system. These are several of them. We also last week launched or announced the next generation of OutSystems product, and that will be served by the product design system as well. Just to go into a little bit more details of our design system, we have basically three pillars that are the structure of our design system. First, on the foundations, these are the core values that we have for the design system. Everything that comes along with accessibility, writing, voice and tone, principles and personas, they are all encompassed here on the foundations. And then we move to the other things that are more visible, but still atomic, like typography, motion, color. Those are the atomic parts that can encompass and create other things, like, for example, if you mix typography, color, and shadow, probably, and spacing, probably you have a card, right? So these are the atomic things that we would like to think, and actually the tokens that we use. This lead us to the components. Here in the components are like the molecules that we use and are formed by the fundamentals. Here in the components, we can have like components that are a little bit smaller or bigger. For instance, like a tag that is very small, or a login form that is like a page. We are still not distinguish between components and patterns. That is actually another name to distinguish something that is a little bit bigger, like a wizard form. But we probably are in the progress or in the process to do that kind of change. So these are the core team that works on the design system. We have a multidisciplinary team that are composed by UX UI designers, UX designers, and even a UX engineer that codes everything beautiful and smoothly that we have. And these are essentially the core team. But the product design system involves a little bit more of people. So we tend to pass this message to everyone that starts, that the design system only lives because the contributors inform the design system, and actually the design system also informs the product design teams. We can't have healthy design system without it, right? So that's the main message that we pass to everyone that starts in our UX group. And still talking about, still in the last slide, talking about the ownership. The product design system is owned by that core team, but there are a lot of collaborations with other teams. For example, the product content team owns the part of the voice and tone, the writing guidelines. There are another part that are the interactions and motion that are owned by interaction team. So our design system are splitting ownership by different teams so we can grow together. And if you want to find more, there is a cool articles written in this year around all of this process and how did we achieve what you actually saw it. I think that's it.
Just giving the time to scan the code. Yeah, I was hoping that we will miss like the next slide, please, but the last one I was not hoping. Okay. So with everything that Guerra talked about, I think you more or less got already have the idea that we have a lot of assets, and thinking on that, collaboration is very important and sometimes can be tricky with so much libraries, a lot of components, different teams collaborating in the same Figma files. And that's what we are going to very briefly, because I think we could have an all day talking about our process and our design systems. But let's have a look on that. So like I was saying, it's very easy to organize the organization in Figma, in meaning organization, how you organize your files and so on. Having a lot of new people entering the UX group, people that maybe don't have so much experience in Figma, some people that were preferring Sketch. So we have a lot of moving parts. And one really good tip to give you guys here is to sit down with your designers, meaning they are your users from your Figma libraries, and try to understand where are the struggles. So that's exactly what we did. We had some interviews with the designers, UX writers, and they have a lot of feedback, and they told us some struggles. Mainly, how can I find the files in this big organization in Figma? Why do I jump from one file to another and the pages are different names and order? So this, I think it's okay when you are a designer, but when you start collaborating with big teams, different development teams and UX writers, it gains more importance. So we had these goals that you see here. Our organization needed to be discoverable. Like I said, predictable, meaning you go on vacations the next day and some designer can took up on your work and he knows the organization of your page and folders. And scalable, because we have a lot of people coming in and it needs to adapt and be easy to onboard. So we did, after these conversations, we had some work done, and one of that work was a file template in order for every time that you need to start a new project, or you just want to understand the structure, you don't need to start on a blank slate, and you have a file template. So this is a file that we created, and it's shared all over the. By the way, we are using the organization Figma plan, so it's shared across the UX group. So they just need to duplicate this file, and they'll find there this template structure. This helps for our goals that we stated previously, and I can go briefly through this. You can look at this organization more or less like a Kanban board. So we have a cover page. This is also an asset that we have across and on a shared library. Like we call it our toolkit. Then we have an overview page where we have another component for the designers state the goals of the project that they are working on, dates, it's very important, dates, and links for different resources. Like you want to link this project to a Jira task, you have there some buttons to link. Then it starts the Kanban part of this organization. So we have the ready, we have some guidelines, we have some documentation to support this Figma structure, but our guidelines for the ready is to maintain their only the frames that are ready to be implemented or are already implemented. Then a prototype. Now with the recent updates with Figma, this is easier to work. At the time, we were just saying, okay, put your prototypes here just to be easier. But now we have the starting points. It's a breeze. And the in progress where we can explore. And then when you have the designs ready, you can select them, right click it, and move to the ready page, for example. Then you have a more free form pages there, the discovery. This is where all your collaborations or your collaborators can go and expect to see mood boards, images, explorations. So it's a place to have all of that. The components, this is important for our team also. We understand, and for seeing some projects now, sometimes designers need to create local components. It can be local components using our design system, and they create a master component just to accelerate with specific copy, for example. So they have here this place to use local components. It serves the owner of the file, but then when the design system team needs to do an assessment, for example, they know where to look for these local components, and then analyze if they can be promoted, for example, to the main library. So it's a good practice. And then the archive, I think the name says it, but in our guidelines, we also state that, okay, you have an archive here. We don't need to delete stuff, but we say to remember to use the version history. So it's like a reminder. And also in our guidelines, when we say to move something from in progress to ready, to make an entry on the version history in Figma. And yeah,
sorry, the archive saves lives. Sometimes version history not enough. Usually I call mine trash because I'm more optimistic. But yeah, it's really useful to have, no doubt.
Yes, and this is a template. We also have some, we have some that are not archived, are trash. So it's not like written in stone. But yeah, it's cool to have it there, and not just if I want to grab something, I need to go to version history. Sometimes you need to be more quick on that. And yeah, that's the bridge for this section. So we have we follow the semantic versioning guideline or standards to do the versioning of our design system. Like I said, we have and previously we were seeing It could be other designers' files. Now this is more specific for our work, publishing components and working on our libraries. So we tried, and this was like learning lessons, not to compile a lot of updates and then you see that's update button like 100 stuff to publish, and it can be tricky. And we started this work. We didn't add the multi-selection of publishing. If you just want to publish one thing, now you can select. Previously we didn't add that, so we got the experience to do more incremental stuff. So yeah, basically that's it. We do an entry on the version history. And one interesting part here is that we are using a plugin done by Rui Cabrinha that is also working. It's a colleague of Bruno. He also works here at OutSystems.
Yeah, Bruno is always talking about him.
Yeah, he's great. He's like
always selling his plugins.
Yeah, go-to person to talk plugins. And in the recent days, we've been talking to him to have a custom plugin to dark and light themes. So always fun stuff with Rui. And this is not an exception. So we use the version history plugin that Rui did. So we enter this in Figma. We run the plugin, and the plugin will read that information and send via a webhook to a Slack channel of our choice. So this is what you are seeing here. This is automatically, so the Figma will send this to Slack, and this is a part for collaboration, and we ended up also using it for the code library versioning. So it's great to have this more systematic way to do publishes.
Yeah,
it can
useful.
Be, yeah, it's
a change log, automatic change log.
Yeah, it can look like a bit too much for someone just starting, but then you just feel cool by using a plugin and the message is there on Slack. And another point, like I said, on collaboration, we not only did the file template, that it's only that, a file, but we also had the necessity, or just to have at the end, a library that's shared across the group. It doesn't matter in what part of the product that you are working, you'll find useful stuff here. And it's also on that predictable aspect, so everyone uses the same status design. It's always, at least we've noticed that from the beginning of starting using Figma and until now, we are designers always not sure to what should be our cover page. Let's align on that, or the headers that we put on the frame. So this is an attempt to solve that. So the designers just need to toggle on this library, the toolkit, and they have all these assets here from the cover template that serves the file template, and they will find there a post-it with the instructions and various components like arrows if you want to do a flow. We also know that we can do that with plugins, post-its when you need more attention than just a comment. But one of our main customers for this work of the toolkit and file template were our friends of UX writing. They had the most struggles because in some files they didn't have edit permissions, so that's needed to be a guideline in our documentation. So just give edit permissions to the people working with you. And nowadays with auto layout, you almost don't have excuses. So that's one. And just to try different things, we created some components with variants to help the UX writers tell to everybody, not only the designer, but developers, if the copy on the designs is final, if it's a draft, annotations, and also the date. So they can just drag and drop this card closer to the designs, and they use this variant. So it's not, the variants are not just for the designers. We have the UX writers working on this, and this can be like a proof of concept to a plugin, a custom plugin. Who knows? And another, a more recent thing that we promoted here at OutSystems, with so much new people coming in, we felt the need to start doing something like we are doing today, a space to collaborate live. So we call it, it can change names tomorrow, we don't know, but Figma Ask Me Anything sessions. The design system started by doing the first one, just talking about auto layout, because when you are working on something, you almost don't have time to just let me see some tutorials, and we were seeing that happening. So we took that on our ownership and started these sessions and did some fun moments like we are seeing here, to try to sell. And guys, just use auto layout when you can, and then you can collaborate even better with UX writers, so they can type less or more text and your designs won't break. So we are doing these sessions. We already had a second one, and this is cool because we started it, and then we have other people's like that are really into Figma doing the next ones, talking about components and variants and so on. So this is another idea that you can try to implement at your work, trying to do this, because we are always sharing where they can learn on the YouTube channel from Figma, but sometimes it's just easier to collaborate live and use real examples that you are working on day to day, and the knowledge seems to be more easily absorbed. And on the recent aspects also, we started using branching. We started on a file that we were starting a new team, a dark team. Again, it was not for the IDE, it was other project, but we started using branching there. And now we are using it more to, you can use it for design reviews. For example, we have a bunch of icons that we redesigned and now are on a second iteration. So it's an easy space to ask for people to review it. You can have a side-by-side. Also for the dark and light team, it's great to test out colors. You can have a dark team on the left and another one with another contrast on the right. So we are using it to do these iterations and reviews of the design system. And as you can see, it even works for the toolkit library. We now needed arrows for the dark team. So it was a contribution. So the branches are also great to have other people outside from the design system team to contribute. If they need something, they can use the branching and do another component, and then we can review it, something like that. And this is one of my favorite parts, because like Guerra said, we have an awesome engineer working with us, José Rosario. And as you can see, we can have almost the exact same stuff on code in Figma. Not only because we also designed the code preview, but we started to took more attention to this, to the component API. So with the variants, we are very keen to have like almost like a mirror of your variant properties, and you'll see the same properties on code. This is a preview that we have for our components of the design system, and it's something that we are currently working on. You can have a lot of time invested here, making sure that you use descriptions on the components. Let's use the same labels. Is it binary or not? Meaning you have a toggle or not? And it's a lot of fun to work side by side with the person developing your component. Yeah, I think now I can move some stuff around. We have Mafalda Barata working on the interaction design team. That it's continuous collaboration with the design system team, because everything needs to be an interaction. If you are designing a button, it will have interaction. And this is a recent work from Mafalda that I think it's very interesting. How can we use Figma to pass specs to the development and also preview motion in Figma? So she's working on this, and another library was created. It's the motion library for motion specs. As you can see here, this can be used for a variety of things. And it's cool because the developers can see it at their own pace, small details of the interaction, and they have everything here. So it's a very cool work in progress from Mafalda that I think has a lot of potential also for a custom plugin. Okay, the future.
All right, so a look into the future. This is something that we continuously working around the governance part. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the term, but essentially, by the governance definition, we understand that it's everything that encompasses all the adoption, maintenance, and also the evolution of a design system. We have a few areas of scope here with governance. I would like to tell you a little bit about that. And basically, the metaphor that I use for governance is like the maestro working with a band, right? So in the governance part, you are like architecting everything that goes around with the system, and basically that's the metaphor that we use to transmit this message to everyone in the group. So the governance areas that we count with are basically these five, like the model, the part of enablement, and now talking more specifically on the team model. We have an hybrid between the centralized and this decentralized way of working that we can see in the next slide. Yeah, that's it. So if we can see from this diagram, we are kind of like on the core team, like the blue people that are owning the design system assets, and we distribute and receive feedback and contributions from the other design teams. We also, you might also notice the in this slide, you might also notice the person with the product design team, the blue person at the top. So these are the kind of things that I was talking about the decentralizing team, because in our core we also have people that are also there to work and listen and collaborate and bring feedback to the central team and actually collaborate with the central practice to spread everything that we are doing here, and also contributing from them to us to bring new things and keeping the system alive. And that's mainly the main job of these people integrated in the design teams. So when we talk about enablement, we like to see the enablement in three kind of levels. So the first level is like a brainwash that we give to people when they start in our UX group. So they all pass through an onboarding kit. This is where they understand that we have a system. What does it encompass? What are the details from the design to code? What can we do? What we should avoid, etc. And then we move to other things like level 2. What could be the level 2 of the enablement? So these people that working on the product design teams attend and listen to the Ask Me Anything sessions. We have the documentation for them, they use it, etc. In a third level, there is something that we still need to work a little bit further, that is on the contribution guide. So these people can actually also contribute to the system from where they are in the part of the product. And this is important because we are a very limited group as a core team of design system, and we serve a lot of products and a lot of people from design and developers. So if everyone contributes with each part, it could be simply taking one component and making them with auto layout, for example. It could be like tiny things, or doing a competitive analysis or a small research about a new component that they need. For example, password reset could be an example, a real example. These kind of contribution things are essential for us to keep supporting them in the best way. So regarding contribution, we are still in a few small steps or baby steps where we are defining the contribution guide, who is involved, what are the parts, what is the process, hopefully a lightweight process so people are more likely to participate. And then what is the criteria for a contribution, what makes a contribution valuable or not, etc. That is something that we still need to work, and that's why it's on this section, called it future. Regarding the communication, this is not exactly the future, because we are talking here about the present that in reality. So in the communication, we have a few Slack channels where we release and deliver the message of a new release, where we get feedback, where we have or where we get questions, where we say, guys, we'll release something that will probably detach or break some of the mockups. That's the sad news, but hopefully this new component will be better for you, and that kind of happens sometimes. In the version control, basically we have everything documented. We again go to the Slack to communicate these kind of changes, releases, new things, and then we keep a log of all of these in a Confluence page, which is the tool that we use to document things in the R&D at OutSystems. Yeah, potential breaking changes. Be aware of that, and with the CMTV alert, of course. Regarding the documentation, we also use the Confluence as the main tool for documenting things in the engineering. We have this kind of structure where we respect the pillars of the design system. This is just one example of the color, but essentially they respect all the same structure. So we start with the definition of what is this thing, the table of contents, the anatomy, and when to use these or not. This is more for the components, and then we all end up with the live preview. The live preview, it's something that we didn't mention very extensively here, but the live preview is basically where the components are coded and live for everyone to see. As Conceição was explaining, it's very important that the design, the code reflects the design, and the design reflects the code. So that's where everyone from designers to developers can see all the variants and all the things already coded and ready to be used, by the way. Yeah. Custom plugins. Conceição, you want to take this?
This is a callback to Rui Cabrinha. So recently we've been looking into with more effort to custom plugins because it makes sense, being on the engineering part of OutSystems, to make use of this that Figma give us. So we started out testing just a simple plugin, using it from, this is one from Daniel from Discord. So we also started conversation with him, but we came to the conclusion that we need a custom, like a tailor-made plugin for us, because today it's light and dark, tomorrow can be another team, and also transforming those components that we saw for the collaboration with UX writers into a plugin. For example, we have content reel, something like that. That is currently it will be our first attempt of a custom plugin, taking it more seriously to collaborate with UX writers. So something like content reel, but internally, where you are using a button, you open the plugin, and you will see copy just for the button, and then you can cascade through there if it's a confirmation button, error button. So that's the idea. So yeah, this is part of the future, starting to work in custom plugins. I think that everyone wants to start work and having custom plugins, right? Okay, this was the slide, right? Yeah. So this is us. So some of the persons involved on this, we are very hands-on on all of that we presented you here. There are a lot of moving pieces, and yeah, we are always adapting, with also taking into account Figma updates. We had some learnings when we got the variants and now the interaction components. So it's been fun. I don't know, Guerra, if you have some words before we go into Q&A.
No, I think everything was said. So basically, me and Conceição, the Johns, are here just representing the work of a bunch of people that probably are listening to us right now.
Some of them, yeah. I picked in, yeah.
Yeah.
They can join to say hi if they want.
Say hi, guys, don't be shy.
I think I need to give permissions, but.
So basically, that's it. We are here representing a bigger group that working continuously on improving and collaborating much better in the future. Probably, Conceição, you can also talk about what we have in the sessions at Tuesdays about design system and the things that we discussed there.
Yeah, so we also started to, like I said, we have a lot of people working, and we understand that sometimes you can have teams working on the same thing or almost on the same thing, and they could be sharing resources. So we started Design Systems Talk. It's a bi-weekly session. It's a very casual Zoom call where we can share what we are working on at the moment, or even when we had Schema, for example, we use that time to just talk about what we saw on the conference. So it's a space to promote Design System Talk, and it's proving to be very valuable, and merging the teams that are working on Figma and design systems. Also, this conversation about plugins, it's helping on that, bringing people together, having developers work on the plugins. So it's a fun moment to talk about design systems.
Yeah, that's really great. You have a great team that can do anything. You can really thought about any process and develop it into a plugin if you need and everything. But that's awesome. It's it's amazing. I wish I could have a team like that to work on my things. I think about plugins, but I can't build them. Like João Guerra said. Wish I could do it.
I think especially it's great to have an engineer at the team. This is so amazing.
Yeah, and it's just one, but it counts for many. Right? Yeah, makes a lot of difference. And it's actually, he works on the files with us in Figma. Nowadays, I think he spends more time in Figma. So it's a great tool to collaborate with the auto layout. We start to talk the same way, and that's great. Working on variants.
He was starting to use auto layout, and he made an audit in Figma where he used auto layout perfectly. So yeah, we are really proud of you, Jose.
Yeah,
is
instead
of
using
assisting?
Not sure.
Yeah. But he's the one who does the design system in code, right? The front end.
Right. The live review and so on.
Yeah, I do that job as well, but I build the design system and I code it, and it's a hard job. And my question, I don't know if you can start already the Q&A, but my question was how you sync between the design system and the code. Use any tool? I noticed you have like I think it was a component that you used to have the documentation and the state of it, if it's already implemented or not. But how do you sync between the two worlds?
Yeah, we have the workflow is the same, but we have the design system team that mainly looks to the main experience, and then you have the components. But then that workflow that we've seen, it also serves for the product designers that are making a flow, full screens, but we use the same methods. They make more use of those annotations, for example, making it clear in Figma what's ready to be implemented. Luckily, we don't need a lot of spec work, like the red lines. Everyone knows about those ones. We also have it on our toolkit library, but we rarely use it. So we have developers that work well in Figma. So we mainly, to end off work, we use some sort of documentation close to the UIs. In our case, since we work side by side with Jose, it's even easier. Sometimes we can be working on the code only. So we don't need, and we don't have a tool between Figma and the code. So basically that's it. Now we've been working more on motion. We are using Figma to do that spec work. And yeah, basically that's it. Figma inspect and sometimes some documentation in the file, and making use of the annotations just to make sure the status of the design.
Okay, but you have like not have like a library with the code. You use your code is everything on OutSystem format, right? So yeah. I'm not familiar with it. So, but when you're building like in React or any other language, you need to build it differently.
Yeah, that's why it's a bit different. For example, in our preview, you won't have the need to see the code part. You just have the preview because everything will be on Service Studio. So it's you just go to the repo, install the parts, you make sure you have the recent version, and it's there for you. It's a bit it's simpler in that method.
Yeah. Great tool, Service Studio.
Also, the designers can see the Confluence documentation, like the playground with code or something. How that works? or just Figma for them?
It's open for everyone. So not only Confluence, the code preview, we use it on a daily basis in conversations. For example, if you are talking about a specific interaction, we use the live preview. Yeah, it's open to everyone.
The live preview is on Confluence, right?
It's a website. It's an internal website. Yeah.
Okay.
And then in Confluence, go. Sorry.
The part that we have in the Confluence, basically, because the live preview, it's a coded site, it's a live site. We can embed the part of the component, for example, alert. We can embed in a blog, and then you can see also the live preview on the Confluence page. But it's a proper website with everything documented, and then we have the Confluence to document everything, every UX guideline and so on. But yeah, that's the part
may I ask you, what is the difference between the Confluence and the website? Like, there's different purpose or different public for it? Because what is the difference?
The live preview basically will state every component that it's coded. So usually it's more for the developers to see what is available and in pre-built and ready to use. On the Confluence part, it's more about the UX guidelines that we have for such components. For example, when to use a coach mark, what are the use cases that we will use it, and then what is the anatomy, the variants, and so on. So it's a little bit more extensive. And the live preview, it's much shorter with only the components.
Oh, nice. That's nice. I'm asking, at Millennium, for example, we are trying to use something like Zero Height, something in between, to integrate with Storybook. And we are thinking about a website as well, but much more like a short description of UI assets. But the complex documentation and the live preview and the how to use and everything would be in this more private platform, something like that.
Yeah. I think we can, like with the Confluence, your Zero Height is like our Confluence, and our live preview is like your Storybook, for example.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking. But the website is not public, right? Your website is like intern. Right. Okay. Got it.
And we've been there. We tested out Zero Heights. We have some specific teams making use of Storybook, so we are always taking it into account. What tools do we have? But more recently, we are just trying to have the more streamlined workflow possible between Figma and documentation and then code. So keeping to a minimum of tools, and it's been working. So the documentation is as specific as possible, and in the end, we keep sharing general guidelines and other resources, other design systems. But yeah, it's also okay to test new to integrate with Figma.
Great. Yeah. There is anything that made you choose Confluence? Like, I don't know your set of tools.
Yeah, it's just because it's the tool of choice of the engineering. So not thinking about the design work and design system. All the other aspects are documented in Confluence. So we ended up with Confluence just to get a bigger audience.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I think that's it, because it's convenient, familiar to everyone in the company, and it doesn't cost. It doesn't have an extra cost, basically.
Yeah. Great. Got it.
Yeah, that's good. We have some more questions here in the
Q&A. Let's go to the other questions. There's a lot.
I don't know if you guys want to read it. We can read it out loud.
do you want to share your screen? How do you guys use
it's on the chat. You go into the chat on the right. If it's closed, you have on the top corner.
Okay.
There's a button here like answer live. I don't know what happened.
No. Answer live is to make it already answered. Has been answered. It's not.
Okay.
The UX is not that good. It could
I just
answered.
misclicked it.
Yeah, but it's here.
I can read it.
From
Okay, I can read it now. This one, and then we can check out the other ones. Okay, this one is how do you guys manage the organization between live version, explorations, and old version of the product inside Figma? Is that made in a single file as you showed in the file template slide, or do you split into a different team?
Okay, I think I can take this one. So it's different for components and patterns, for example, from the design system, and then the product designers work. In our case, we don't use the same file. We've been trying to use more files, not only because of the file size, but also to keep sane. So we now working on Figma organization, we can create teams, and that's what we did. We created a design system ops, and there we have several projects to do exploration work, and then we can move those files and final work. For example, we can use and this is something that we do, we use a single file to work on a single component, export it there, start the documentation there, and then when you are ready, we move that to the main library and then publish it. So separate files.
Nice, because I have a question. I don't know if you have like big versions, like a complete change or something that you need to split in different files because some teams are still working with a previous version, an old version, and you cannot override in the same file, like publishing.
We had that happening. Not because of the code part, but because we updated for variants, for example. This is from a time ago. So we had to split and create a new file just in order to have zero breaking changes. You end up having some of those along the way. But the way we do it, when nowadays we try at the maximum, don't have a big update that just because of a Figma new feature, it's making us create a new file. So nowadays we try to break it to a maximum. But in that case, what we did was create a new file. Then we have a specific time where we use communication through Slack and also Figma annotations using the file name that will be deprecated. And we also had another example that we did a big update, but in the same file. So we created a different version of the component. For example, we have the tooltip component. We took that component, duplicated, and then deprecated the ladder and marked it on a red background to show up on the assets panel. We didn't delete it. And then the designers using it could see that they were using deprecated components.
Yeah, that's nice. Exactly what we do that, because at first we started like updating components and they just do override when you change layers or name some stuff. And some teams already have journeys and prototypes and they're doing user tests and they just click on the review and everything changed. And so we started to create, in some cases, a new component and we set the old one as deprecated. So they do the change when they are ready and they talk with the PO and stuff like that. So it's better to give them this decision power to do the swap. That's nice. Okay, another questions. Flavio, do you want to pick something else?
Yeah, we have from Ana Parada. Can you please describe the process of adding a new component into design system? I think you described it a little bit now.
Yeah, currently the main contributors for regarding components, it's being the design system team. So our process is the one that you saw. Like I said, incrementally as much as possible. So don't we try not to update. You go on and update a button, then a wizard, the cars. We try to do it by components, and then we use the plugin, and basically that's it.
I think there is also a cool example, a recent example that we did. It was like the coach mark, where we basically understood the need from the design teams. There was also already some work that they've done, but essentially our work there was to understand what were the requirements for every team. So we gathered like 4 or 5 teams to understand what were the requirements. We did some competitive analysis regarding those kind of patterns, like in onboardings, in tutorials, etc. Then we also do a thing that is having a table with the names of some components from other design from other design systems, so we can probably predict a little bit better what would be a good name for that component. So if something is common in other design systems, more likely will be common for people inside OutSystems and will be a little bit better to understand. And then we will actually design and code and pass through the process that Conceição described to incorporate into the system.
I can also add that now we are doing like we showed you today. We have a file template, but we are starting to also use a component template. So when you are working on a new component, for example, you grab that template and you have all the stages that it should go through, from exploration to development. You have several pages there.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Amazing.
You're talking about naming. It's always difficult to find the balance between everybody involved.
Yeah,
especially when it gets very complex. We try to follow that rule of what and context, the semantic of it, and then the variant. But then you have a lot of context when you enter on product libraries, and you have like a card that gives a lot of context, and the name can be very big, so it's very hard to handle. But yeah, another question, Flavio?
Andre Lima. He asked, can we have more insights on the contribution guides for the design system? This looks very interesting. The contribution guides is...
Hopefully we had more insights to share. The contribution guide is from the governance part. Yeah. Hopefully we had more insights because we are still figuring out what would be the ideal process. But follow up on our social. Here in OutSystems, we have a culture of sharing probably everything that we do in regards of our process. That's why we wrote so many articles around the design system, and probably one of the next ones would be the contribution guide. What does it involve? What we learn? And so on. Probably it will be a next one.
It's all about socials, where they can find you guys.
In OutSystems blog, on Medium, we have everything there.
All right,
great.
Yeah, I can add as a tip there. I don't know if the person that did the question saw the dive into branching that Figma did. I think you already have it in YouTube channel, but there you have a very good way to work the contribution model using branching. They demonstrate their, again, a template with a checklist, and it can be a starting point to work on a contribution model on the Figma level. So it's a good session to watch on Figma.
Yeah, branch allows a lot of contribution, especially even inside the team of design system, because sometimes you have a lot of people working on related components, and you need to receive the updates that your other colleague have worked already. And I don't know if you have this problem about contribution at the beginning, but you need to talk, like sometimes the designer can send that you are transfer work for them, like componentizing stuff and doing everything in auto layout and documenting stuff. And I don't know how I would like you to tell us about how it was to pass this knowledge about how to create a component very well and how to document and how to build everything with auto layout to the designers that are working in the product layers and contribute with the design system.
That's a great question. I don't know, Guerra, if you have some ideas, but in the design system team, we have our team. It's great on that aspect because everyone is very capable on Figma. So the learning curve is more on the bigger picture. There it's always going to be a bigger struggle to keep up with the number of persons using Figma. Not so much creating components, because that ends up on the design system umbrella. So it's a very close team. A lot of times you are working on the Figma audio, or we just switch to Zoom and are working there together. It works. It happens almost every week. Working on a component together. This week we already had that happening, also with our engineer there solving a component. So then we have the other part, the users of the libraries, and sometimes they need to create components, and there's where it enters those Figma sessions. We make a lot of use of Slack channel. We have a specific Slack channel called Figma users, because it's going to be the faster way for someone to get an answer. You even have there Bruno helping our engineering partners. So it's basically that, an open conversation and trying to help understanding how to lay.
People?
Yeah, Conceição. The problem,
Okay.
technical problem.
Yeah,
No problem.
with internet problems.
Okay, he's back.
Yeah, it was warning us from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Conceição, wrong button. Don't click on the red one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Doing
but I think I had.
You managed
no
to answer
problem.
everything.
Yeah, it was great.
So another question. We have here Wilson Sands is asking if your engineer, if he works full time on your team, on design system team, and when a design team and the engineer work together, how does the process work? Do you do competitive analysis together, or is it a separate process?
Yeah. So for the first question, yes, the José Rosario, our UX engineer, works full time on our team, but also contributing and making the bridge with other development teams to make sure we have the right adoption Everyone is aware of the components that we have, small fixes that we need, or even evangelize the design system or teach something related to CSS and the way that we should create the components in the code version. Regarding the second part, we work a lot together, as Conceição was saying. So basically, even this week, I think yesterday we were talking and working on a component, and he was there also contributing to it. When it comes, for example, competitive analysis, we do it together, or sometimes separately because of the scope of our work. We are probably, sometimes we are split in different topics that we are working on. But I think there is a very healthy and proactive attitude with everyone, because everyone can do a competitive analysis, an audit on what is not working so well, or even thinking about new components or behaviors for the components that we have or might have in the future.
Yeah, great.
Great, nice.
We have another question from Leticia. She's asking the main difference between professional and organization plans in terms of design system management. I don't have the organization plan, can't answer for it, but on the professional, you don't have any tools besides the normal ones Figma already has that are really useful for design system. But your organization, I think you have like a special dashboard and everything, right?
Yeah.
In analytics.
I hope my connection doesn't go down again. You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah, now it's great.
Okay, I have seen the question. I think the design system management can work even if you are not on an organization plan. We did this transition more or less recently. The main thing that changed was the organization of projects, meaning projects, we can call it folders. It was that, and the ability to create multiple teams. For example, when we were on the professional plan, we were all inside one big team, and then we just could separate by project folders. And we can work with that, and we did with a lot of documentation and those templates. But nowadays we have more freedom, and we can manage the components. For example, having more separated files to work on components. We just recently are looking more into Figma analytics, but more on a surface aspect. For example, using variants to understand what's the most used variant on a component set, to be the first to appear on the asset panel, for example. If you are always using an input with helper text, I mean, not with helper text and not label, with label and not helper text, it makes sense to move that on your canvas to be the first one to appear. So using Figma, using Figma analytics, you can do that. And then to manage the libraries, understanding what is your library. We have a lot of libraries. What's the library most used? What's being detached? So the management part of it, of the organization plan, is more focused on the Figma aspect. I don't know if the question was on a more general design system management, but on the Figma aspect is that it's the way you organize components and name stuff. And it can also help to know when to deprecate something, for example. It's cool. A little Figma analytics.
And also branches are only available for organization plans, right?
Oh, so that's nice. That's a big part. Yeah,
that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I could use it too.
But the analytics is very important. I mean, even for the roadmap, like what to take off, what to improve, and especially when you have a lot of libraries and you need to promote components, so you can see when some component is very used for another teams from another layers. So this is a big one. But I think I have seen some design system running at the Pro, and it was quite all right. But you have to do a lot of this stuff that Figma does in organization, like manually. So it's like more work to do, for sure.
And the analytics are great, but we need to kind of mix a little of this quantitative data with qualitative data, right?
Yeah.
So basically, we cannot just trust on the numbers that people are detaching something or inserting something, because that doesn't provide us the why, right?
You need
It's
to know
important
the
to
why.
understand the why people are detaching this, because they have a problem with that. This doesn't serve the purpose of the need or the need that they do. So yeah, it kind of helps in some way, but doesn't do all of the work that is actually doing the research and talking to people.
Yeah,
It's
that's
more like
a
an
great point.
indicator, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we have
yeah.
some components with a lot of detach, but we, the design system team, are the main responsibles for that when doing exploration. So yeah, the numbers there can lie a bit to
Tricky.
I
you.
mean, different things. Yeah.
Yeah, we just have one last question because it's getting a bit late.
Yeah.
It's been a long,
Almost
a
2
long
hours.
session. Just to finish, Pablo Belver is asking if you already start using interactive components in variants on your components on the design system. If you use the animation, like the prototype, if you use directly on those, or if you have separate files or anything. I think that's the question is asking.
Yeah. That's a conversation that is on the table right now, but we are trying to separate interactions on different levels. So those more the first level interactions, we are starting to implement them on the master components and what's being published, because we have a lot of mockups and a lot of designers doing mockups daily. So it helps a lot. Just having the status on the overstate on the button, stuff like that, we are starting to do that. More complex, not more complex, but bigger interactions, for example, panels on your UI, stuff like that, that can be a bit trickier to have on a master component that then you publish. That's what's on the table right now. Mafalda is looking into that. So we are discussing and doing the pros and cons of having a library just for motion, for example, but mainly for preview, because we have a lot of prototypes and it makes sense to have the interaction components. If they don't need to break anything that you already have built, we implement that, the interactions.
Yeah, I think it's a good approach.
Yeah.
We had a little problem with the interaction at the library of design system with the checkboxes and radio buttons, for example, because we try to put like the check when you click and it turns to the check mode, but then yeah, you use it when the designers were using in the prototypes, it conflicts with, because you need another action to navigate. It's not just about the state. So it was still conflicting the both actions, the change to with the click to navigate. So it turns out that all the designers were eliminating the action who comes from the design system. So I think there is still things to test on the interactive. I think for hover, it works very well, like things that you don't need the click exactly. But yeah, there is some things to test about it.
Yeah, and we are also taking into account, this is something that I think just testing we will learn, but the memory size aspect, because we have big libraries, and we are not sure if we are going to have a bigger loading times, for example, if we implement interaction components in everything. Because even you can turn on a library and drag and drop stuff. Our libraries, the designers just go there to have a general idea what's in the inventory, and sometimes copy paste from the library to the files. So we need to have a lean file and organize that, and lower loading times.
Yeah, it's important. So I think
Phil.
It's a colleague of yours?
It's a colleague, yeah.
All right. So we came to the end. It was an amazing session. We want to thank you guys for coming and to take the time to explain everything, go to the process. I think I speak for everyone. It's really nice to have this kind of insight. I work on a smaller team. For me, I can't even imagine how it is to handle everything. So great job, guys, and congratulations on the design system and all the process you implemented. It's really nice. It's amazing to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Thank you very much. I have seen something. I think was you at the Club of Creative or something, and it was amazing. But I think now you had more stuff about collaborating, and it was so great to see it, like more details and more about the process. And I think we had a lot of insights, and I just want to thank you very much for your time and all the insights and the learnings of tonight.
Thank you. Thank you to the fellows there on the chat. They are very important to all of this process and contribution. So thank you for your time also. They are there.
So guys, thank you for coming to assist for watching the session. If you're not on Slack, I shared the link here. You can join us, the Friends of Figma Portugal Slack. Usually when you need any help or anything, you go there and ask, and people are always ready to help. It's a really nice community. And we're going to have more sessions like this. We're doing one per month. Each month we're doing one session with special guests, and next month we're going to be a special one, a Christmas session.
Yeah, that's true.
We hope to see you guys there. And thank you again, guys. João, the Johns, thank you for coming.
Love them.
And we'll see you. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks,
Have a nice week.
Thanks, Alex.
You too, guys.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.